Welcome back, everybody, to Toronto Today here on The Parlay. I'm your host, Luca Rosano, alongside my co-host, Michael Singh, and we are back at it again. We're going to break down a relatively quiet night in Toronto sports, but we do have a lot to talk about. A lot went down yesterday, and we're first going to start with our best bets. Mike and I, we literally lost our bet in the worst way possible, and this is the worst part of sports betting, in my opinion, when you lose by a point or two. So let's first take my beat, for example, here. So the over-under with the Jazz and the Suns was set at 222. It went over 224. I lost on 2 points. And then if that wasn't bad enough for all of you, Michael Singh, he took the Bulls -2 and they only won by 1. So he lost his bet too. I'm 6-6.
Luca, it gets even crazier than that. Okay, so this game, Bulls were leading all game. And when I say leading, like they were blowing Charlotte out, or not Charlotte, sorry, OKC out all game. Third quarter, I think they were up around 30 points. The last 4 minutes of the game, OKC decides to go on this crazy run, right? Brings the game within reach, but never to within one possession. With under a minute left, they cut it to about, I want to say 6 points. Then they cut it to 4. With 1 second left on the clock. It was a 4-point lead for Chicago. 1 second. OKC decides to chuck up a meaningless 3-pointer at the buzzer. And I miss. I don't cover the spread because it went in. It didn't mean anything aside from screwing over our spread right here, and that cost me. I would have been back at 500. I was so sure I was gonna get there with the way the Bulls were rolling, and that's a dagger, man. That's a dagger.
I think we were talking about this before in the NBA, more so than any other league. You can literally lose a bet that's looking like you're gonna win it in the last seconds, like a meaningless bucket like that. It happens all the time. Even when I would bet on college basketball in March Madness, a team would be covering, and then the other team that had lost the game would just chuck up a 3 to end the game, and they would get it in. So all of a sudden, that team only lost by 5, which in essence covered the spread. So it's crazy. It's a crazy world, man, honestly. And yeah, I saw both of our beats last night. I'm like, yeah, that's not the way we wanted to begin our Tuesday. But let's talk about the Raps and Hornets. We'll get to our best bet for tonight a little bit later on in the show. Raps Hornets, this should be an interesting one. Hornets have been playing really well, and the Raptors coming into this one, they've kind of had a little bit of a shakiness to their week. They've picked up a couple of nice wins, but then of course they dropped that killer game against the Blazers, a game that they had no business losing, in my opinion. So now Raptors are going to be taking on the Hornets at home, by the way, and they are 3.5-point favorites. So are you surprised the Raptors are a favorite in this spot? And who do you like in tonight's game? And by the way, the over under for this one is 222.5.
I honestly don't know. This one's kind of too close to call. I'm surprised that the Raptors are such large favorites. The Hornets come into this one 26-21 on the regular season. The Raptors are 22-22. Of course, the Raptors playing, I was gonna say a lot better over the last month or so, but January, it's been tough for the Raptors with a bunch of tight games. They're 2-5, I believe, in the month of January, straight up. So they haven't been playing their best basketball. Of course, Sunday was tough coming off that loss to the Portland Trailblazers, a team they definitely should have won against. And Charlotte, on the other hand, they're rolling right now. They're 7-2 against the spread in their last 9, and 7-2 straight up as well in their last 9.
Yeah.
They're coming off a tough loss to the Atlanta Hawks, which they definitely should have won. But they got absolutely blown out. But maybe they're going to bounce back for this one because, like I said, they are playing some really good basketball right now. LaMelo Ball is an absolute star in the NBA. He's actually such a treat to watch every time you get to see him play. He's just showstopper. So that'll be fun to watch tonight. Same with Terry Rozier. Both of those guys, I think, are really fun players to watch. And for me, I'm kind of hesitant, but I do think the Raptors are going to pull this one off because, listen, they're at home. They're coming off that tough game against Portland, but they did gain some momentum out of that game from that second half. And, against Charlotte, they're 9-4 in their last 13 games against Charlotte, 6-4 in their last 10, so a little bit tighter there. But I think this is going to be a statement game for the Toronto Raptors, who have to prove to Masai and company that they should be buyers at the deadline. And this is a good way to start.
Yeah, we're talking about it on yesterday's show. This next couple weeks of play for the Raptors is going to be critical in what Masai Ujiri ultimately does. I was quite surprised to see the Raptors as slight favorites only because of their last game. If the Raptors do get off to a slow start in this one and have that type of play where they look dead for one half and then they attempt to come back late in this one, it's going to be a long night for them. This is a good Hornets team. This is a team that we've seen on the road pick up some big wins this season, not to mention a few weeks ago against the Sixers, who have been one of the best home teams. So this is a Hornets team that it doesn't matter where they're playing, they're picking up wins. And you mentioned, obviously, Ball, Rozier, both of them have been having great seasons. And this is a team that a lot of people didn't expect them to be this good into this era of LaMelo Ball, and it's exciting to watch this team play. They play a fun style of basketball, and this is a team that you definitely don't want to bet against, especially when they are a slight dog. And you look at the Hornets, they are going to be missing Hayward and McDaniels, but after that, they are relatively healthy coming into this one, and they've proven that they can win games without Gordon Hayward. Obviously, he makes a world of difference with their offense when he's there, but I think they'll be able to cope well without him. And for the Raptors, they're going to be coming into this one healthy, minus Khem Birch, who once again is going to be out with that nose injury. I don't know what's going on with Birch. Hopefully, he could get back to the rotation soon. But yeah, you mentioned the Hornets' hot play of late, especially against the spread. They're both 7-3 and 7-3, straight up and against the spread. Like it's crazy how much of a good bet they have been. They're only 3-7 though, over under in their last 10. So the over under could be a pretty good bet here if you are looking to go under. Yeah, this one could go either way, man. I'm honestly leaning towards the Hornets just because the Raptors, I just have a sour taste in my mouth after watching that last game. And I question this team's ability to play all four quarters. And if this team does not get off to a good start, or they have a drought in the third quarter where they can't hit a bucket, this is a Hornets team. They like to get up and down the court. They're going to make you pay. And I do think this is going to be a relatively close game. So for that reason, I would take the hook here, plus 3.5. I can see this game going down to the wire and maybe coming down to, last couple of possessions, and maybe we'll see something that happened in that Bulls game from a night ago where the Raptors do win, but it's by 1, 2, or 3 points. So I will side with the Hornets here, plus 3.5, and I am liking that under because the Raptors are also 3-7 in their last 10 with the over under. So those would be my picks for tonight. I'm thinking Hornets plus 3.5 and under 222.5.
I like the over under because actually the total has gone under in 7 of Charlotte's last 8 games. Same with Toronto. The total's gone under in 7 of Toronto's last 8 games. So if you're betting over under tonight, just factor in the fact that the total's gone under in both of these teams last couple of games. And Luca, I think I'm on the opposite side here. I think this has to be a bounce back game for the Raptors. I think there's more pressure right now on the Raptors to perform, and they've shown it late that they can definitely rise to the level of their opponent. And I think they're going to be prepared for this Charlotte Hornets team. This is a team that by now no one's taken lightly. Everyone knows about the potential this Charlotte team has, and as the favorite this season, the Raptors are 13-7. Which is really good. Honestly, they've taken care of the games that they should have taken care of. As the underdog, Charlotte, on the other hand, they're 17-17. So it'll be a tough game for both guys. There's something telling me that this is going to be a statement game by the Toronto Raptors. Let's see if I'm right. But what I want to kind of segue into here is kind of our next topic on the rundown, Luca, and that's Gary Trent Jr. If we're talking about statement games. He's coming off that, of course, injury that kept him out almost 2 weeks, maybe a little bit longer. And he hasn't really looked the same since coming back. He has to refine that stroke that's made him so deadly. And as we've talked about, he's so important to this Raptors team because of the space that he creates and his ability to kind of just stretch the floor. But his shot hasn't been going down of late. So I'm wondering if you're concerned at all about Gary Trent Jr. and do you think he kind of gets it back on track tonight?
I'm not concerned. As you alluded to, he's coming off that injury. It's only been 2 games back, so let's give him a little bit more time. And also, you got to look at Gary Trent Jr.'s game. He is a streaky scorer. Some nights he can erupt for 20 plus points, even 30 plus points, and then he's going to have his off nights where he doesn't shoot the ball particularly well from the field. So you just have to live with that with Gary Trent Jr. Now, he's done a great job this season of minimizing the off nights that he's had. So I do think he will get it going soon, and you got to factor in that injury time. He's getting back into game speed, game shape, so I think he will be okay. Now, in terms of tonight, is he going to get it back against the Hornets? I don't know. His player prop for tonight is 14.5, and he's coming off 2 games in which he just went under that. So he shot 4 of 12 against the Wizards for 13 points, and then 4 of 15 against the Blazers for 13 points. And I actually dug up a pretty interesting stat. This is according to StatMuse. Gary Trent Jr. has averaged 8.3 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists in 3 games against the Hornets. So, I mean, if you go based on that, he'll go under tonight, but I do think he will have a much better game because he barely grazed that player prop line, which is 14.5 his last 2, and he shot the ball horribly. I think we can bet on the fact that Gary Trent Jr. will have at least 5 or 6 makes tonight and possibly even get more points at the line. So I do think he will get it going against a Hornets team that has given up a lot of points. And yeah, I agree with your first point. He's imperative to the Raptors' success, especially on offense. And we saw in the last 2 games, Raptors stagnant out of the gate, falling early in the game. And that was because outside of their stars performing, they weren't getting any added offensive firepower. And Gary Trent Jr. is that X factor, in my opinion. He's that guy when if he's getting it going and then you pair that with a Siakam or a Fred getting it going, the Raptors are going to be okay scoring the basketball. So they definitely need Gary Trent Jr. going. And if he does get going tonight, then that means the Raptors are going to have a good night. And I think this game will be close. So yeah, I would probably go over 14.5, ignore history here against, his track record against the Hornets, and lean towards the side that Gary Trent Jr. will have a much better night tonight. And hopefully that results in him shooting the ball better from the field.
I'm with you. If he does have that game tonight where he scores more than 15 points, I think the Raptors, I'll say that the Raptors win this one probably easily. Because he is just that important. Because Freddie's going to find a way to get his, even if he's not shooting the ball well. The way that Siakam's playing, he's going to get his. And then you think about OG, Scotty, one of them are probably going to do decently. So I like that. If Gary Trent does go over there, I think the Raptors win as well. So I'm guessing that he does. And again, I'm guessing the Raptors win here.
Yeah, he's the key. Every time he has a good game, the Raptors are in a position to at least win that game, if not win it outright. So we'll see what happens there. We're going to switch gears now, and we're going to talk about Shapo. A lot to get to here because I feel, got more attention based on what he said during his match than what actually happened. Let's first get to the match. I mean, man, it looked like he was going to get ousted in 3 straight sets, going down early 0-2. Then he battles back, and then unfortunately Nadal does take it in the 5th. So Nadal now will take on the Italian Berrettini in the semifinals. But there was an interesting moment that happened in this one. So during his match, Shapo took aim at both Nadal and chair umpire Carlos Bernardes in a heated exchange. And he basically, erupted, and he was insisting that Nadal was, wasting time, and he actually accused the umpire of being corrupt and not penalizing the, Nadal for taking all that time. And then what was even more interesting was he doubled down on those comments in his post-game presser, saying that Nadal does receive unfair treatment because of his standing in the sport. So I was surprised by this because Shapo literally, has never done an antic like this before. I know he's a fiery competitor and you see that with his game, but for him to have this bit of an outlash during, I think it was the first set too, it really set the tone for the rest of the match. But I don't blame him because Nadal has shown a tendency of taking a ton of time in between points. And obviously it was irking Shapo for him to be outraged like this. So I'm okay with him making these type of comments. I'm just surprised because I did not expect this whatsoever. And I'm even more surprised that he doubled down afterwards, which is good on him. You have that thought in your mind, you express yourself, and he obviously was confident enough to stand by that even after his defeat.
Yeah, like you said, Shapo's a really, really fiery competitor. And I think, Nadal obviously takes forever in between his serves, and that's frustrating, of course, when you kind of want to get into a rhythm and you kind of want to get into the pace of play. I'm not surprised kind of Shapo got frustrated there. He has shown kind of tendencies of that in the past. And I think, honestly, the mental battle there, that's kind of what he lost. When you think about what Nadal did, I think it's completely terrible too. Like, his 7-minute break that he needed between the 4th and 5th set for his abdominal, I don't even know what to call it, because he was seemingly fine after that, but he just needed a 7-minute break to kind of seize Shapo's momentum. I understand Shapo's frustration. I just don't like how it kind of affected his game overall. But that being said, I got to give some credit to Shapo, because this guy went down 2 sets and he fought back to get to that 5th set. And then it's tough, because when you have that momentum and then you have that break, it's a mental battle.
Yeah.
But what I will add, though, is Felix did the same thing as Nadal his previous game against Cilic. Cilic was actually complaining to the chair umpire about the same thing, that Felix was taking too long in between points. So Felix kind of took a page out of Rafael Nadal's book, and funny enough, Felix is coached by Uncle Tony, which is Rafael Nadal's Uncle Tony, who used to coach Nadal. So maybe that's an Uncle Tony strategy that he sort of implemented here to kind of slow the game down and make it a little bit more mentally grueling for your opponent.
Yeah.
And hey, it worked in Nadal's favor this time. It worked in Felix's favor. And unfortunate for Shapo, but I still like where he kind of finished off this tournament. He jumps up now to rank number 12 in the world, which is, a little bit better than where he was before. And there's a lot of positives to take away. So if he can kind of build off this momentum, I think he's going to have a really strong season. He could be one to watch out for as sort of a dark horse betting wise moving forward in some of these majors.
Yeah, I don't think too many people had Shapo pulling off the upset, but you have to feel good about how he went out. If he lost in 3 straight sets, especially after having that breakdown, we'll call it, in the first, you would have had a very sour taste in your mouth, and it would have been very disappointing for him. But he battles back, he has a chance, and he just comes up short against one of the best players to ever play this sport. I mean, you can't feel too bad about yourself. So it could have definitely been worse for Shapo. And like you just mentioned, he continues to move up the rankings. A lot of promise to his game. He's still so young, bright future ahead. And he just has to think to himself, his time's coming. You got to just get through these battles against these great players. And I mean, Nadal's not going to be around forever. At least you would think that. So Shapo, he's definitely going to take a lot from this, and then hopefully the next time out he can look to at least, make it one step beyond and make it to a semi. But I definitely like his fight in this one. I love the fact that he did battle back to that 5th set. I know it was a late game if you stayed up to watch it, but hey, it was worth it. I know even though he lost, at least you did see a valiant effort from the Canadian Shapo. And now we're going to see if Felix can do the unthinkable tonight. I think the game starts at 3 a.m. He's got a match against Medvedev. Are you feeling the upset tonight? What's your official pick for this one? Or do you think Felix will have the same fate as his fellow Canadian Shapo?
I think it's going to be a late one. I don't think it's quite 3 a.m. But honestly, I never know with this Australian Open times. But I am not feeling confident about this one. This is a bet I'm probably going to stay away from right now. Felix Auger Aliassime is plus 400 straight up against Medvedev. And as we touched on yesterday, history will tell us that Felix really struggles against Medvedev. He is 0-3 lifetime against the world number 2 player right now. And he's only taken 1 set off him in his career. So the way that Medvedev's rolling, it's going to be tough to kind of it's going to be tough to beat him. Honestly, just straight up, it's going to be something that he hasn't done before, and I want to see if he can do it. If he can get a first set off of Medvedev, then I think he's going to gain a lot of confidence, and perhaps there is a chance, but I'm not too confident. How about you?
Yeah, no, I'm not going with this one. I don't think Felix pulls it off. If he does get that first set, yeah, you're feeling good about him, most definitely, but I think he will hit that brick wall here. And it's unfortunate because you have these two great runs from these two great Canadian players, but they just run into these obstacles that are some of the big names in tennis. And we kind of knew, right, looking at this overall bracket, who was going to be there towards the end. And I mean, yeah, it's looking like it's going to be Nadal and Medvedev. I'm hoping in Berrettini, the Italian, can pull off the upset against Nadal, but usually more times than not, and I feel like we touched on this on the men's side, you can expect to see the two biggest names, the two best players at the end battling it out for the major. Whereas on the women's side, you can see some unpredictability happen. So yeah, I don't think this is going to be an example of the men's side having that. So unfortunately, I do see Felix losing here, but I'm just hoping he can make this a game worthwhile, similar to Shapo. I mean, if he can force Medvedev to a fifth set, hey, that'd be great. You know, go down fighting. That's all you can hope for in these moments. And then you hope these players learn a lot from that, and then they just come back better. So we'll see what happens, but we're pulling for Felix. Got to take down Medvedev. That would be, if that happens, we're talking about that first on tomorrow's show. Spoiler alert. That's going to be the first thing on the rundown. All right, we got to pick some winners now, and hopefully we don't lose by one this time. Our best bet of the night. Mike, take it away. Who are you going with, man?
5-7 right now is my overall record. I would have been back at 500 if it wasn't for that dang OKC Thunder. So I'm going to kind of stick with basketball, but I'm going to go with my roots. I'm going to go bet on a Toronto team, one that we touched on today, one that Luca warned me to stay away from, but I'm still going to do it. I'm taking the Raptors to cover that 3.5 point spread against the Charlotte Hornets tonight for all the reasons that we've already talked about. I just think this is going to be a bounce back game from the team. I think it's going to be a bounce back game from Gary Trent Jr. So I'm taking the Raptors tonight to cover that spread.
Yeah, we'll see who's right on that one. I took the Hornets plus 3.5, so we'll have some bragging rights on the line with that game tonight. For mine, I'm going to go with the Clippers plus 5 against the Wizards. The Wizards are struggling right now. They're coming off a couple of losses, 3 straight losses, as a matter of fact. They're also 1-9 against the spread in their last 10. And they're only 4-6 straight up in those games as well. So this is a team that they're struggling to shoot the basketball. And the Wizards are only 2-8 against the spread when favored by 4.5 points. And they're going to be taking on a Clippers team for as many injuries as they've had. You got to give this team credit. They're scoring the basketball, scoring 100 plus points in their last 4. So I think this will be a back and forth game. And I think for that reason, the Clippers will do enough to keep this game close. So I will take the 5 points here. And I wouldn't be surprised if they do beat the Wizards. We talked about it many times on the show. Wizards had a great start to the season, but they've definitely fallen off. They've fallen back a bit. And the Clippers, you look at their last couple of games, they're shorthanded, but they're making these games interesting against pretty stiff competition. So I do like them tonight against the Wizards. I will take them plus 5.
So I'm like pretty knowledgeable when it comes to basketball. Like I watch a lot of games. I know a lot of players. I was watching the Clippers game last game. And I was just like, who the heck are these guys? But as Lucas said, they're coming out. They're surprising a few teams, and perhaps Washington will be the next on their agenda tonight. So 5 point spread, that's a decent amount. I wouldn't be surprised if that turns out to be correct. So I like it, Luca. I like it a lot.
All right. Hopefully we both have winning picks for tonight. But that will conclude another edition of Toronto Today here on The Parlay. You can catch us all over social media at The Parlay. You can catch this podcast at Apple, iTunes, or wherever you get your favorite podcast, where Mike and I come to you Monday through Friday with the biggest talking points in Toronto sports and more. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch you all again tomorrow.